Hello and welcome to another episode of the Interstellar Business Show. I'm so pleased that you've joined me today. I'm your host, Andrew Bull, and today we're going to be discussing everything about pay-per-click advertising. I'm joined by expert in this area, Thomas Green. We're going to be discussing the myths of pay-per-click, some of the big mistakes that people around it, and how you can make the most of it and take the right first steps to maximizing this platform and getting new leads and new interest in your business. But before I deliver and Thomas delivers all his amazing insights and knowledge on pay-per-click, there's a short message about a free business report that I have created just for business leaders like you.
Are you a free-thinking business leader? We have a report you must see. It's a personalized report that reveals your strengths and weaknesses. Head to interstellar.report and get your free report today. Test yourself at interstellar.report.
So I'm really pleased to have on the show today Thomas Green from Ethical Marketing Service. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thank you, Andrew. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. I'm a business owner and author. Like you say, director of Ethical Marketing Service, which is a digital marketing agency. And I post out a lot of business education on my social profiles if you are looking for that type of content.
Okay, cool. And so a big speciality of yours pay-per-click? Would that be right? Pay-per-click advertising?
Yes, we do. I'd say let's say a majority of what we do at Ethical Marketing Service.
Okay, all right, cool. And just to like, I think most people know what pay-per-click is, but there might be a small minority of the audience aren't familiar. Pay-per-click are kind of the adverts that you might see at the top of Google search results where it says ad, or maybe you see an ad in like your Facebook stream. That would be a pay-per-click ad, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are there some big myths that surround pay-per-click? For example, that you can't make money with pay-per-click or anything like that?
I think if that is a myth that you can't make money with pay-per-click, I'm happy to go into it. I haven't actually heard that before, but in terms of whether that's factually correct, I would say it's not correct at all. I think some people or some businesses may struggle to, for example, make money with pay-per-click if they're in a particularly competitive niche, or perhaps if they haven't given the time frame, perhaps. But I think the biggest one that I see that's repetitive is that there is such a thing as a hack in relation to PPC. So, it is very much cause and effect. So if you have a good education and you apply those learnings that you have, and that you're continually testing, as it's referred to, then that's how you get good results from PPC. There's no such thing as hacking it. I suppose it depends somewhat on the definition, but there isn't any quick win to turn something from being an endeavor that takes time and effort from being something that you don't have to try very hard at. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does makes sense. There's no shortcuts with a lot of this stuff. You have to put in the time to get the result.
Exactly.
Would you say, do you think people are still attracted to adverts? Do you think there's any kind of burnout towards advertising at all, or people still want to engage with them like they always have?
I think it is an ongoing process. And an example of that is when Google first introduced their adverts to the search engine, they look very different to what they look like now. And over time, they've sort of blended them slightly to make them look more like the natural search results. So it is kind of I think if they were all relevant and they weren't sort of pushy in the sense that wouldn't be a problem. But there is this sort of ongoing improvements that they make to the ads as a result of people maybe losing their patience with them somewhat. But it hasn't sort of done anything to the performance of the ads themselves. They're still just as they perform just as well as they ever have, or maybe even better based on the improvements that have been made.
Interesting. And how do you feel about SEO? Let's say I've got a limited amount of money to invest. Some people might say, actually, if I invest in pay-per-click, that money's going to be gone by next year. Whereas if I invest in blog posts, that money will kind of stick around a bit longer. Like, have you got an answer to that or thoughts around that?
Well, the first thing to note around any marketing method is that you shouldn't be reliant on one source of marketing for your business. So because if that one source of customers goes away, then you're essentially one step away from having a business with no customers. So I would never rely on one source. So if you can get customers from multiple different marketing mediums, then I would encourage that. I wouldn't say ever that you should only rely on PPC. In terms of what you decide to put your budget towards, it's quite subjective because it depends on what's worked previously, the type of industry that you're in, and also how quick you're looking at getting a return from that marketing spend. So if we just take your example, which is PPC versus SEO, PPC can return, you can get a return on your investment almost immediately. So within either the same day or the following day, you can see a return from that money. Whereas with SEO, it's a very slow burn. So if let's say you're starting off with a website and you're looking to rank that organically, a quoted time frame for a new site is something like 6 months, if you see it at all. So I wouldn't say don't do SEO because you can do well from SEO very much, but it's just very different in terms of how quickly you're looking for that return, and lots of different things, what type of return you're going to get, that sort of thing. But like I say, it would be better to do both than it would to do one. So although, we do a lot of PPC, I don't advocate only doing PPC. It's just one part of your marketing strategy.
Okay. All right. Sure. And it makes sense to have like a wide approach to these things, and they all support each other as well. Because if you send someone to your website from a pay-per-click advert, it'd probably be a great thing to have some very authoritative blog posts on your website anyway. That's going to help the conversion process, right?
Yeah, and that, as well as you can do remarketing with PPC, and you do remarketing to any person who's visited your website from any source. So if you're also getting traffic from SEO, that can also help your PPC efforts as well.
Okay, brilliant. So there's like a real organic hybrid approach that we can employ here. Awesome. And what trends do you think are going to be driving pay-per-click in 2021? Because we're at a time of amazingly huge trends and disruptions and changes. So I'm just wondering how you see that playing out over the next 12 months.
I think a lot of the ad platforms are trying to implement more automation. So you see that with the way that you pay for your ads, for example. So instead of a more manual approach where you decide exactly what you're willing to pay in each instance, the machine learning, as they refer to it, that is they encourage that more and more. So I think that they'll attempt to add that as much as they can. And also another trend is personalization. So Google Ads introduced more demographics and different types of targeting to go along with the typical keyword bidding that you might see. So not only can you bid on a particular search term, you can also decide whether you want a particular age range to see that ad, and also maybe a particular gender. And so you can be much more specialized in who you're trying to reach with your advertising. I think that will continue.
Interesting. And what's happening right now in terms of wasted clicks? So in terms of bot and especially dark wasted clicks, which is where in the worst possible scenario, I suppose there's a marketing agency A and marketing agency B, and they both serve a dentists in the same city, right? And so every time the adverts for dentist A comes up, the marketing agency for the opposition go and click on those adverts to like get rid of the budget of the rival dentist and ruin that advertising campaign. What's happening with that right now? Is that a thing that people should worry about, or it's not such a big deal these days?
I could tell you what Google's position is on it, and also what I anticipate the case to be, which is there is a certain percentage of waste in relation to what you're referring to. So you can't stop someone searching for a particular term and then clicking on an ad. But in terms of whether they do it frequently, if it were to be frequently, Google automatically filters that out. So you can only click on an ad a certain number of times. And if it were, for example, a bot, then Google automatically refunds you based on that activity. There is a process that you can go through where if you think that you're a victim of what they call click fraud, then you can go to Google and say, here's the example of why I think that I've been a victim of it, and they'll investigate it. But presumably what they state is that the vast majority of cases is already been investigated and refunded to you.
Interesting.
So I don't think that's as big a problem as it's made out to be. And
Okay.
there are some services which claim to be able to filter it out. But the way I look at it is that Google, for example, is one of the biggest tech companies in the world and has the most, advanced technology. There isn't a company which is going to be able to filter out what Google can't, if you see what I mean. So
they've got the biggest tech weapons already for dealing with that challenge, which is intrinsic to a huge part of their business.
Yeah.
Already. So in a way, you're saying don't worry about it too much. Google will handle a lot of that stuff for you.
Well, what I say is you have to focus on what you can control. So I did a video on click fraud along with what Google's statements are, and what I think you can't possibly control whether competitors click on your ads, but what you can control is how you can improve as a business and also your marketing. So in order to do better, you need to be better is the sort of the summary of what it was. You can actually look in the back end of Google Ads and see whether or not you've been refunded. They refer to it as invalid clicks, and you're regularly getting refunds from invalid clicks. So like I say, my position is that it's not as big a deal as it's made out to be.
Okay, cool. All right. So moving on, thinking about people's financial situations and the fact that it might have been a tough year for some businesses out there and they've lost big accounts or clients. Should they be thinking about should businesses in that position think about using pay-per-click as a way of helping them recover, or is it too high risk?
Well, I always encourage, if it's, for example, the first time for a business advertising on one of these platforms, I always encourage people to only spend what they can afford, because there is no way for anyone to say in advance what kind of results that you will definitely get. You can make estimates or projections based on certain data, but anyone who says that you'll definitely get a certain result is not being honest. So if that's the case, then you should only advertise with money that you can actually afford to potentially lose. And the other way that I look at it is it worth testing on a marketing platform which is one of the biggest search engines in the world, or, for example, one of the biggest social media companies in the world, where they make tens of billions from advertising as a result of businesses wanting to be on there. And my position would be, if you have a business, it's definitely worth testing it, but you should only test it if you've got money that you can afford to not get a return from.
Okay. All right. That's great advice. Thanks for sharing that. And what mistakes do people often make with pay-per-click?
I refer to it as step one. And basically, there's a load of advanced features within the back end of lots of these advertising platforms. But often what people tend to get wrong is getting in front of an actual potential prospect. So you can spend all sorts of time doing, advanced stuff, but if you're not getting in front of someone who actually has the potential to be a customer, then you've got it wrong from the start, which is step one. And, that might be a keyword, for example. So there are two different things within Google Ads. One is the keyword and one is the search term. So if you take a local business like a plumber, you would add a keyword, for example, plumber as a keyword. And then if you look at the search terms, you might find that in order to, if that person has clicked on the ad, you might find that they actually typed plumber job, for example. So it might be a person who's looking for a job as a plumber, and they click the ad, and your advertising budget might be wasted when referring to that keyword. So that is what I would focus on. And what often people make mistakes with is just that first step, sometimes called intent. So what is the intent of the person who's searching?
Okay, yeah, and I guess you could lose a lot of your money on how to be a plumber, or plumber videos, or plumber DIY, something like that.
Qualifications, courses, apprenticeships, all those types of things that can are heavily searched, and you can lose money on if you don't block them.
Or funny plumbing videos, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
What makes your approach different? The ethical marketing service. How do you approach things in a different way to other marketing and pay-per-click companies?
So the ethical part of the business is we've got a mission statement which says that we want to be the most trustworthy agency that exists. And in order to sort of back that up, what the USP is we offer a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, which means that if someone hires us in the first 30 days for any reason, they can get their money back if they feel like they deserve it. And the mission statement basically drives the whole company. So, I think it's a more sustainable way to do business. So if you've ever heard of Earl Nightingale, he basically said that if honesty didn't exist, it should be created by someone in order to do well in business. So I just think it's a better way to go about it.
I mean, I think it's great.
Don't miss out on future episodes. Be sure to subscribe to our show and keep notifications on.
Moving on to talking about teams. Do you provide pay-per-click training for any of your clients' teams? Do you ever have that hybrid approach to working with people?
Yeah, sometimes it's requested. So there are a couple of scenarios. One of them being that before they want to take up the actual management, which we offer, they also ask for, I need to be able to understand this service more, because it can be very jargony. So you can throw out terms which just mean nothing to most businesses. So they ask for training before and then go for management after. But then there are also people that are, we don't really want to outsource this, but we do need some training. So will you do that? It's a small part of the business, but it's not the majority of what we do.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I was quite interested in that pathway of training people, and then they actually move on to just wanting you to manage it anyway.
Yeah.
That's very interesting to know. And so, do you have a team there, Thomas?
Yeah, we just had someone leave, but we've got a team of 9 Google Ads professionals now. So we probably look at replacing that person, but we get everyone to go through their Google Ads exams, and they all get training, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. Okay, and how do you go about building your team or building that team?
Well, we look typically there is an option to just hire people already who are already doing the job, but the meaning that we get from the company is actually creating jobs for people who wouldn't otherwise have one. So I feel that if we hired existing PPC professionals, that we wouldn't necessarily be contributing to society, for example. So what we do is we hire, for example, marketing graduates or people who have some form of marketing background. and then we train those people up and invest in the person. And even if it were the case that, let's say, they leave, months later or whatever, I think it's still a rewarding thing to be able to say that you help that person get from A to B. So we look at it as an investment in the person.
Okay, brilliant. Fantastic. I love that. I love that whole ethos around creating jobs. So, congratulations to you. And that's brilliant. Love it. Especially right now, we need more jobs created. So did you have a go at building a remote team? I think you mentioned when we spoke previous to the call that you'd had some experience with that before.
Yeah, I took on it wasn't one that I purposefully set out to do, but have you ever been exposed to people who say, you don't need any staff to do this, you can just hire freelancers and they'll do all this for you. So I started out the company doing that, which is, it was not successful, to say the least. You get, every now and again, you get a good couple of freelancers or whatever, but often they'll move on to better things or they'll get full with work. And the people, we just got so many, for lack of a better term, bad freelancers that it was almost, is unappealing to me. So we do absolutely everything in-house as a selling point for the business, because often the clients won't know who's working their accounts if you have multiple freelancers, but also just as a selfish thing as well, which is it's just much more rewarding and much more you get better result, in my view, in having people in an office who are employees.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Are your team all still in the office now because of the current restrictions, or there's some of them at home, or?
All of them are at home, unfortunately.
Okay.
But in terms of what the choice would be, I think it would be better as a team and a company to have everyone in the office. But at the same time, if you look at the flip side of that, I wouldn't want to be responsible for anyone getting COVID or anyone's family member. So everyone's remote at the moment. Sure.
Do you think there'll be a knock-on long term in terms of how people work? I mean, your business is based in Brighton, right?
We're in Worthing, so quite close to Brighton.
Okay, but all your team members quite local to that area then?
Yeah.
So they don't have a big commute anyway, I suspect.
No.
Okay, so it's kind of a bit different to the London situation where people can find themselves commuting for an hour and a half each way to a job. Yeah. Or I think it will become more of the thing about being able to work remotely. I think that'll be an overhang that we have moving on. So what do you do with your team to help them level up their performance and capabilities? What have you got in place for that?
Well, we subscribe to an online course platform. So there's one we use, which is LinkedIn Learning, where you can basically get a course on almost anything digital. We've also given people a particular day to learn about a specific topic. So we tend to ask the staff if there's something that they want to learn that they're passionate about. So if someone's currently doing Google Ads, but they want to learn, for example, web development, I'll get them a project in relation to web development, and I'll give them some time in order to learn that type of thing. So what I want to try and avoid is people basically getting bored or unfulfilled with the work that they're doing. And also, we have the ability to find work sort of at will. So if it were the case that someone started getting really good at web development and we had that person who was in the office and wanting that work, then I could source it. And then basically, instead of it saying we're a company and we do this, so you have to work that way, it's more of a kind of, if you have a passion about a particular topic, we can mold your job into that, if that's what you're passionate about.
Brilliant. That sounds great. And what about encouraging your team to take ownership of projects? Is it the case that your business is so structured that they don't need to do that, or you like them to grab hold of something and run with it?
I tend to invest so much in the person and their capabilities that if they get stuck, or they can always come and ask me because I like to help people anyway. But when someone is capable and they have, help if they need it, or if if they actually enjoy what they're doing, I kind of think that you win in most of the battle when you're doing it that way. Okay. We've put some things in place as a result of, people working from home in order to be responsible. But generally speaking, I'm fairly opposed to the concept of micromanagement. So I like people to have a bit of freedom.
That's good to hear. That's great to hear. That's interesting. Oh, out of interest, do you have like a project management tool that you use? I'm really always interested to hear about that.
Do you mean from the perspective of working remotely, or processing that kind of thing?
Yeah. Like if you have a stack of tasks and projects, I'm just wondering how you might track that in the business.
We have used Trello for a long time to make notes. And the notes kind of system is so that the idea is that if someone was off for any reason, that another person could then take over and they wouldn't necessarily have to speak to anyone. All those notes are already in the system. And when we went remote, we sort of implemented Hubstaff as a result of, not really having any, you can't basically see anyone. So that kind of helps in relation to remote working.
Awesome. Okay, so this we just touched briefly on about the notion of redundancy in terms of someone not being around and therefore having a fallback, like accessing information in Trello. So that brings me on nicely to my next couple of questions, which is about you personally as a leader and your business. And would you say you're the kind of person who's working on your business or working in your business?
I have done both. So I have spent a long time working in the business, and I found that as soon as I started working on the business, it just grew so much more. And so I know it's not necessarily new concept, and once you have heard it or once you know it, then it's kind of obvious. But it was the biggest thing which had the biggest impact in terms of growth to start, as you say, working on it rather than in it. Because if you take on all the work, it can only grow as big as what you can do.
Okay. And what was the key for that transformation?
It was, I think, the biggest, thing that I can share with other people is just a book, and the book is called The E-Myth, and it's sort of like a story or a parable, and it's kind of a little bit cheesy, I would say. But if you're a business owner and you're considering that concept, then I'd really recommend reading that, because it just made a huge difference to our business.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book. It's one I've read as well. Yeah, fantastic. And so, in the future, do you think you'll be stepping back from the business? Is that something you're planning to do at some point? You think at some point you'll just be in the chairman role or something like that?
I've stepped back quite a way, so it's not like typically what I do is just I help people as a person who they can go to in order to address problems, that sort of thing. But in terms of, there's a concept that I heard, which is, and I'm not 100% sure on the exit strategy yet, but the one thing I heard was in order to, for example, sell a business, it needs to be a product in the way that, a finished product. And that means that you have to be out of it. So every part of it. And so I'd like to get it to that point where whether I decide to go in or not, it's a finished article if I decided to sell it. But I've got a lot further to go yet. So it's not going to be something soon.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but it totally makes sense to build a system which isn't dependent on one person, right? That's what investors are looking for. Because if one person disappears for whatever reason, then there's no business there, right? So yeah, exactly. Interesting. Yeah, really cool. And has stepping back also helped you personally get a better work-life balance as well?
Well, the big thing that it allowed me to do was to ensure that, for example, sales and marketing had more of a focus. And one of the things, it sounds really obvious, but when you're in the thick of it, when you're doing the operations, if you were to do both, let's say you're doing operations and you're doing sales and marketing, it's almost the case that you have a disincentive to not get on more business if you then have to fulfill it. Whereas if I have, capable people who are doing the work, and I have capacity to do that, then really you can go out and get as much business as you want or need. And that's one of the additional things which made a big difference to the business.
Head to interstellar.show and find all the resources mentioned in today's episode. Plus, discover powerful training which will help you grow, work, and live smarter. Visit interstellar.show today and begin your adventure.
And so let's move back to pay-per-click. What steps can people take to get started? If I'm thinking about getting started with pay-per-click, what are some of the important things to think about to begin with?
There are some small things. Google Ads offers a voucher where if you spend £25, then you get 75 in return for ad spend. So, you can get £100 worth of ad spend by only spending 25, which is it's kind of a good thing. I would think very much about what makes you unique as a business. So there's a lot of Me Too businesses out there where they're really not offering anything in addition. So a phrase I like to say is, what makes you different from all the options available to the potential prospect? So you need to have that in place, because people aren't just going to do business with you because you say you do a particular thing. And also the Google Ads, or the PPC side of the equation, is just really what I would say is one half of it. The other half is when someone goes to a particular website, what do they get when they get there? And I think that's very underestimated in relation to anything website based. So what's your marketing like on your website? Is it congruent from ad to website, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a nice expression. I think the scent, right? I like is does the scent carry across from the advert to what people then smell on your website? Do those things align? And yeah, I think you have to think about how people will convert on the website as well, right? Not just because a click can be worth something. Like, I suppose you can remarket to people later, but if you're just at some point, you need to know what that journey is going to be after the click.
Well, they do have metrics in the account, so they refer to it as conversion rate, but the focus always tends to be on improving the conversion rate from the ads account rather than from both. So you can make a huge difference to the performance of ads based on what you do on your website.
Okay, awesome. That's yeah. So do you consult and advise on that then as well on the website experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that I enjoy anyway. So.
Okay, brilliant. So what are the steps? So obviously we've kind of covered some of the steps already. So people have got to find the right keywords. Then they've got to cut out the keywords that are going to waste their money, I suppose. And then we've got to make sure our website is ready for people to arrive at. So we want to send them to a page. At the bare minimum, we want to send them to a page where they can contact us, right, and become a lead.
Yeah.
Like if we don't even have that capability on our website, then that's probably something we should do even before pay-per-click. What else might we need to? What other steps might we need to put in place?
Well, another kind of principle that I like to share is if you're thinking about it from the searcher or the visitor's perspective. So and a good question is, if you were looking for this type of service, would you inquire or would you become a customer of this business? And if you can really put yourself in that person's place, then I think it's a really easy question to answer, because it comes back to that question, which is what makes you different than anyone else. If you're just putting out vanilla flavored offer, like 5% off or something, it's not enough. Whereas if you're doing something really compelling, whether that be, I mean, some people refer to it as like a lead magnet. Are you offering something which is zero risk for the person in exchange for their details? Or, is your marketing so good that it just makes them inquire anyway? I think about those things when, that advice when answering that type of question.
Brilliant. And so when should someone approach a business like yours? What signals do you think might be telling them that they should reach out and approach you?
I can tell you a lot of the scenarios that people do, and it's sort of like similar to a question that you asked me about, being involved in the operations. So some people will have a go at it themselves, and I don't think that's a bad thing if you're willing to put the time and effort into learning it. But if it's taking you away from other areas of your business, then it may well be more beneficial to, outsource it, and then it means that you can focus on other things. And the idea of my business is that we can get a better result than you can get yourself because of the experience. And so that's one scenario. Another might be, there are some shocking agencies out there. I don't think it's the case in all instances. I'm not saying that, I'm the only option, but there are a lot of agencies that will, for example, take a recurring fee, a management fee, and then not do anything for it. So if you think that you're dealing with one of those types of companies, then it's a regular thing we get. So, I paid a load of money to another agency and I found out that they weren't doing anything.
Okay, interesting. So, all right, brilliant. That's great advice and really helpful, I think. And it's interesting you're talking about the DIY thing as well, which I think is a limiting belief often with people. They think it's easier just to do it themselves, but actually they don't realize the true cost of taking that on themselves as well. So brilliant. Where can people reach out and contact you or learn more about what you do?
Website is ethicalmarketingservice.com. You'll be able to see all the various services we offer, and also at the bottom of the page you'll see all their social links. So you can choose, if you want to follow, you can choose your preferred method. So that's an easy place to find them all.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, Thomas. Great talking with you.
My pleasure. And speak to you soon.
So I had a great time talking with Thomas Green today in the interview, and I thought he had so much helpful advice to share about pay-per-click. One thing I would say to you, if you're thinking about getting started with pay-per-click, start small. Test the water. You don't need to allocate all of your budget at once to running a new project in a new area. Try a very small test, maybe try one product or one service in a limited location and just see how your budget works out in that area and see if it's working. And then once you understand that your pipeline's working and that you've got everything in order, the advert, the audience you're targeted, and then the landing page where the people convert, then it's actually working, then you can think about scaling up your budget and adding more products or advertising in more regions. The key is to start small, test that something works. If it doesn't, adapt and just keep changing until it does work. And then at that point, you can go big. So I'd say testing is key, and that's certainly something I've found. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, go and check out my business report or interstellar.report. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Interstellar Business Show. This podcast was sponsored by the Interstellar Report. Ready to discover the powerful forces that influence the success of leaders like you? Head to interstellar.report and grab this brilliant resource. A personalized report which reveals your strengths and weaknesses in 6 key areas. Visit interstellar.report and discover the insights, roadblocks, and opportunities you've been missing. Plus, get free personalized training that will help you grow, work, and live smarter. Go to interstellar.report today and start your adventure.